Hello gang, welcome in. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night wherever in the world you are. As you can see, I'm in a little bit of a scurry. That was mostly because I had a little bit of a, let's say, a delay in everything right now. I know I am deafened on Discord. I know I'm deafened on Discord. Should be at least like not deafened on stream. I don't know where's my game. Hello? Oh, there we go. Here's the game. There we go. Okay. Yeah. I moved you so you didn't know. No, that's okay. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Anyway, yeah. We're playing some more Poké-Commander today, and I will also, before we start any of this match-related thing, I do want to use this as an opportunity to please be patient with me content-wise in this time of year, because it's incredibly hectic. Like, it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. So, there's a high likelihood that I'll be skipping, like, stream on Tuesday, next Tuesday. And there's an even higher likelihood that I'll skip stream on next Saturday. I think, if I don't forget, I will fill you guys in on what streams are and aren't gonna happen. Listen, normally I am here like 5 to 7, but now I was here 1 past 7. The fact that I was still somewhat on time baffles me still. Anyway, hi Sam. I should probably say that. Just so you guys know, streams next week might be a bit iffy. It's all because of the holiday season. It's so fucking busy, and yeah. Like I said, if I don't forget to let you guys know, I'll let you guys know. Because I'm pretty sure I never officially said that I wouldn't be streaming last Tuesday, other than on last Saturday's stream. Specifically because I had a seminar from Monday to Friday, which means I was like not at home. I had my laptop with me and my charger, but that was like about it. And I'm not gonna use like spotty hotel Wi-Fi to do a stream on. I'm like, fuck that, you know? So just to let you guys know, this might be the last stream of the year, depending on what happens the week after. But like we said, it's holiday season. I'm gonna try and be more vocal about my schedule, because currently what it is like is that I'm just showing up. I'm just showing up and just doing my thing, but I'm not doing any of the things outside of the streaming thing. So I'll try to communicate better in the future. I think that's everything I wanted to get out of the way before starting. Why the hell is there a Lapras EX in here? Oh my god. Oh, I'm gonna get my ass whooped, aren't I? Here we go. Let's undeafen. Hello. You can talk now, Sam.
Hello.
There you go. Let me just check if your audio is fine. It seems fine. Yeah. Okay.
Don't question the Lapras.
Don't question the Lapras. Alright. Do you want heads or tails?
I'll take it.
Alright. Cool. I will go first.
Cool. I have a nickname Mulligan.
Yikes. Can I see the cards? Oh, I can see the cards. That's just... I think I'm seeing 7 cards that were already in your Terrapagos list, so that's crazy. Okay, yeah. I have witnessed a mulligan. You're still showing me your hands, by the way.
Oh, okay, let me just unhide the head and then draw cards again.
Yeah. Was that another mulligan, by the way? I thought I saw a Froakie.
No, there was a Froakie. But I don't want you to see my hand. That's a little bit less helpful.
Yeah, okay. That's fair. That's fair.
Especially since I'm playing a gimmick surprise deck, because Spiritomb needed a little bit more time on the stove.
Fair. Okay, I'll draw 1 card from Mully, if I'm allowed to. There we go. Yep.
You should have prize cards, by the way.
Yeah, so actually the card I just drew is supposed to be a prize card.
Yeah, that's why I said something.
We'll be fine. We'll be fine. Anyway, okay, are we ready?
I'm ready.
Alright, good luck and have fun. I'll draw for turn. And I'll play my commander. Play netball. Search my deck for a basic grass Pokemon or a grass energy card. I get to see my deck. Hehehe.
So how much did you change from when we built it on stream last
year? Not much.
Okay, nothing. No surprises.
No, I don't think we'll see surprises here per se.
You're gonna see some surprises from this deck.
Alright, I'll grab Cricketot. Play Timer Ball. I'm just trying to fit as much as possible before actually using the Teal Dance.
Teal Dance, yeah.
What do I grab with this? I'll grab one Bay Leaf. Shuffle my deck. Use Steel Dance to attach a grass energy and draw cards. Oh my god, I am so blessed. Quick Ball off the top. Discard that Bay Leaf. Oh, there he is. Fan Rotom, baby. Bench Fan Rotom. Use.
This is gonna hurt.
Fang Call.
Bad.
It's not gonna hurt as bad as you think.
Oh no, it won't. But you know, gotta put up.
Grab these three.
Gotta get content, you know.
Put them all on the bench.
Ooh, this is really hurt.
Area 0. Bench Cricketot. And I will pass my turn.
Alright.
Hello, Strategic. Welcome in.
Oh, that's funny off the top. I'm gonna play Parallel City. Discard a bunch of cards.
Fuck you! No! Oh my god. I guess I'll discard Cricketot as well. And I'll discard this Pidgey.
Oh,
was that the top deck? That's crazy.
No, the top deck was even better. That was my starting.
Oh my lord.
Now I'll play my top deck. Go find a card.
Ouch! Oh my lord. That's vile. Imagine if I play Vileplume.
And I'll get Arvin.
Dude, not me preemptively playing the fucking Area 0 and getting absolutely mega cucked for that play. That is crazy.
And the item, I will get a secret box.
Oh! I'm gonna vomit. I'm gonna vomit.
And then the tool. Oh, come on, my Steel Stone's prize? That's lame.
Yes, let's go. Let's go. Very, very hype. Sam always has the best decks. He does have very funny decks.
Alright, so Arvin will get secret box and air balloon. Go play Fog Crystal.
Yeah. Or basic Psychic.
I'll attach to active.
Mm-hmm.
Play Hisuian Heavy Ball.
Wide attached active. Interesting. Is he gonna do some crazy discard pile shenanigans with the bronze on? I don't know, man. I've been doing Stone Journey VMAX and expanded beta. Ooh.
That is something.
What is something?
So we'll take fan rotom out of the prizes.
Oh!
I fan rotom.
Don't forget to shuffle your prizes, by the way. Yeah, thank you.
And I will toggle that fan rotom there.
I thought my turn one was disgusting, and then we have this. That's crazy.
And we'll get Mincino.
Oh, I don't know this Messino. Hold on.
Hoot Hoot and Knockout.
I can't read its attacks. What are Messino's attacks?
For family.
Oh, okay. So that means you'll probably run two Mincino.
Put down Mincino and Hoot Hoot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're really close, GG.
My secret box is for Good Rod, Surprise Time Machine, and Basic Water Energy.
Hmm. Okay.
You get. Hold on, let me move the discards to the discard. You get a supporter. The supporter is going to be. Table. How do I put the table? Azaru.
What? That's not called Azaru.
Azaru. I don't.
It's Arezu.
Arezu. Same bloody.
I'm gonna arrest you. Sorry, that was terrible.
To table. I'll put Mysterious Treasure, my item.
Mm-hmm.
And then the stadium. Table will be Pokemon Contest Hall.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I need is a supporter, correct?
You need a tool.
No, not supporter. Tool. Tools. Table. Muscle band.
Muscle band. The muscle band.
Those will all go into my hand. I'll play Mysterious Treasure, discarding Pokemon Contest Hall.
Aw, I was slightly hoping you would bump the stadium.
And I will get Bronzong.
Oh no. I'm gonna get giga cucked here. Okay. I now see. Yeah, we did I did unban this card. I did unban this card. I did unban this card. That's crazy. I guess in 1v1 it still fucking sucks, maybe.
I'll put Commander into play.
Mm-hmm.
I'll then use Evolution Jammer, dealing 50 damage and preventing you from evolving next turn.
So you're preventing me from playing cards. Oh no, I can't evolve altogether. Yeah, it's not playing evolution cards. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's awesome. Okay, we at least have this. Still can't evolve though.
That from the top deck? Are we serious?
That is from the top deck, but I still can't evolve though.
No.
I still can't evolve because it specifically says that I can't play. Oh wait, no, it says I can't play any Pokemon from hand to evolve my Pokemon. Oh my god, wait, that's awesome.
Freeze from deck, yeah, that's so bullshit.
Yeah, I'll use Grand Tree actually.
You know why I run Pokemon Contest Hall for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Because that means I can use Genesect, the stupid Ace Nullifier.
There we go. Got a Pidgeot in play.
God damn it, Noah.
Oh, oops. Evolve to Mincino. Bench Combi and use that honey item thing.
Get that Mincino out of here.
To get another Pidgey in play from my discards.
Yeah. Get that Mincino out of here, buddy. You can't evolve.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Yeah, you're right. I still can't do that. That's fair. Oopsie. I'll then use Heal Dance. Okay. I'll use Quick Search. For discards.
Man, I'll force you rid the freaking Grand Tree immediately.
This game is crazy, by the way. I have 69. He has 69 cards in the deck.
I was one turn away from getting my freaking Genesis deck up.
Guzma, your Lapras.
Rude.
Pushing up my Pidgeot because that's free retreat. I don't know what I want to retreat into yet. Let me think.
Yo, map Overpawn, do that.
I'll retreat into Combi and pass my turn.
Okay. I will catch air balloon.
Okay.
You saw me get it off the secret box. Why are you surprised?
Well, I kind of wanted you to force you play air balloon, if that makes sense.
Well, I'll get knocked out into play.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty.
You gotta go for dinner. Enjoy your dinner, strategic.
I will
Enjoy.
one my card a giant stump.
Oh, that's from Noctowl. Okay, yeah.
And the other card will be... I really don't know what to get at this point in time. Will be interesting. What do I want? Actually, can I not get giant stump? Can I take that back?
I mean, you're still doing your action, so you can put it back.
I'll get Guzma.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, winning is winning. The other card I'll get is... I will get Brokey. Actually, no way, I can't.
What? I was about to say you could not really get a Pokemon. I mean, you can get level ball for Froakie.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna level ball for Froakie. What? You know. Anyway. Alright, I'll toggle Grand Tree. To get Cinccino and Evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll play Level Ball to get a Froakie.
Yeah.
And then I'll use Guzma, discard this Froakie.
And
a basic water energy.
Mm-hmm.
To get a Stadium.
Here's a giant stump.
Giant stump, and then a special energy and a...
Cool. There's the tool, and there's the special energy. Okay.
And then, I'll put Giant Stump into play.
Yeah. You discard first from this, right?
I'll discard my Luminion and my Noctowl.
Okay, I'll discard Pidgey and Rita.
I will then toggle my Cinccino. Draw 2 cards. Then I will retreat my...
Wait. Cinccino is discard 1, draw 2.
No, it's not. It's just draw 2.
No, it says you must discard a card from your hand in order to use his ability.
I don't care. Goodbye Luminous Energy. Whatever.
Okay. It's not a straight... Bro, if that card was a straight draw too, it would be disgusting.
Okay, anyways, dead Combi.
Yeah, okay, you're evolution jammering. Cool. Draw for turn. Quick search. For discards.
Oh wait, can I not get rid of the... Can I change my discarding cards? I meant to keep the minion on the bench.
Well, we're kind of far past that at this point, I'm sorry.
Boo!
There we go. Teal Dance. Retreat into Overpawn. Bench Toad School.
Oh,
Play
I hit my prize, dude.
Gladion.
Oh, he just... Dang it.
What am I grabbing off Gladion? Stuff. Probably this? Yeah. Alright. And I'll use Myriad Leaf Shower for the KO.
Boo! I'll push Lapras. Draw a card.
I was about to say, that's not necessarily a bad push. God, I love this song so much.
Okay. What do I need to do?
Play your turn.
What? I never could have guessed that. I'll use Conchino to discard a Drizzile and draw 2. None of these are what I need right now. I'll attach Psychic Return onto Fan Rodom.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll play Ioto to shove my hand to the bottom of my deck and draw 9.
And I will do the same.
And I'll put Town Store into play.
Thank the Lord.
I'll bench Brokey, I'll bench Sobble.
Mm-hmm. And then?
I'm thinking, okay.
That's illegal! It's illegal to think.
I'll attack Rigid Band Conchino.
Mm-hmm.
Do I do that this turn or not? That is the question. I think not. I'll retreat and I'll push Fan Rodom and swing for 7.
Alrighty.
And pass me.
Draw a card for turn.
Ogerpon made that really annoying. And also you ripping Grand Tree immediately also didn't help.
I will use Town Store first and foremost. What do I want to grab off this? Yeah, this is actually not terrible. Grab 4 Sealstone.
Sailstone. Okay.
Bump for Artisan. Use Artisan. With Artisan, I'll put this guy on the bench.
Burrito?
Play Evo Soda. Get Toadscroll EX and evolve the Toadscroll into it.
I don't think I can really deal with this Ogre Pawn. Kind of unhelpful.
Play Nest Ball. Bench this Ditto. And use the Ditto's Poké Power to discard it. And put a Chikorita down.
Oh wow, he really doesn't want those Chikoritas to die.
Yes, Seeker. Guzma. Play Guzma to push up the Cinccino. I'll push up my Pidgeot.
That's pretty lame.
Retreat into Ogre Pawn.
How much you hit for? 120?
I do want to still play this. I haven't shuffled my deck yet, so I'll do that first.
Of course, you hit perfect numbers, because this game's great.
It's almost like I mapped it out, you know?
I should have attached my bodybuilding dumbbells instead, but it's like,
Grab
why would I do that?
Bayleaf and basic grass, the rest gets shuffled back.
I should have played Palkia. It's no fun. I'm losing.
I'm losing. This is no fun. That's crazy. Yeah. And I'll swing for exactly 90. Grabbing a price.
Draw for turn. Yeah, Squawkabilly, thanks for being helpful now. I needed you a long time ago. Alright. I'll use Ultra Ball to discard Squawkabilly and Wondrous Patch.
Ooh, Wondrous Patch.
Gotta get that bronze on. And I'll get Greninja. I'll then use concealed cards, discard a basic psychic energy, draw 2. I'll bench Staryu.
What the fuck? Staryu? What kind of Starmie fuckery are we gonna do here? Oh boy.
Okay. You know, if my Steelstone wasn't prized, I would have had such a better turn, but just a better game in general. This is so unhelpful. Oh, what does it matter? My freaking shit in the prize card thing.
Bro's jorking his shit in the prize cards. No, I'm joking.
Don't need shit. Alright, we're gonna play Rocket Admin.
Ah, you motherfucker.
I could have played Viet versus Seeker for the freaking Iono, same difference.
My next turn would have been such a banger. Actually, hold on. My next turn might still be a banger.
This turn could be a banger. Please hold. Trekking shoes. That's not what I need. Take the card. That's also not what I need. Well, shit. Treating the Lapras, swing with Assault Landing. 70 damage.
Alrighty. I'll draw a card for turn.
I can do stuff this turn, though. Please hold.
Bench Trico.
Go. Rico in the play.
Doing heavy ball.
Heavy ball. I'm gonna kill this Ogre Pawn with a freaking Fan Rodon. Don't let that be you.
Grab Ditto Prism.
You have 60 health, 70 health left. 7. Yeah, you're one shot. You're a one shot, buddy.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Well, shit.
I think I slightly misplayed this. I think it's fine. Bump Skyfields.
That's cringe.
To discard my Minccino and my Trico. Use Turffield Stadium. Grab this. Use Quick Search. Grab
Man, Pidgeot is so annoying.
this. Rare Candy into Meganium.
Oh, come on.
Don't worry, I don't have the other Meganium in hand. That, like, I had to quick search for the rare candy, so.
Okay, that's at least something.
And now I see that I misplayed because I had Arven in there and I could have Arven for the rare candy. God fucking damn it.
Well, you're just gonna arm for a Pokeball.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Thing.
You're absolutely right.
What? So you can't one-shot Lapras, right? Oh wait, no, you still haven't done your stupid thing yet.
These two use Luxury Ball for this Meganium. Quick Ripening Herb to get this Meganium in play.
Do you have the water energy and the gut? I mean, the grass energy and the dust. That's the real question.
Seems that I do not.
Heck yeah.
So I'll swing for turn and grab a prize.
Alright. I can do stuff this turn. I'll draw a card. Use field cards to discard a Psychic Energy. Draw 2. I'll play Arco Bike.
What?
Acrobike, Arco Bike, same bloody difference.
An Arco Bike, that's crazy.
I'll put a card into my hand and I'll discard Azel. I'll play. Actually, who do I want to play? I'll play Irida.
Yeah.
To put Greninja Break into my hand, as well as Night Stretcher. Use Rare Candy to evolve into Greninja. Play Night Stretcher to get Drizzile back into my hand. I'll evolve into Drizzile. And get an item card.
Yeah.
My item card will be Timer Ball. I'll play Timer Ball. Put double heads.
Oh, nice.
And I'll get Helion and which would appear. Oh, then Starmie's right there.
Do I know this Stormy?
I'll evolve him to Starmie.
I can check now. What is Stormy? Oh, it's this one.
I'll attach water energy to return Lapis EX. I'll use water shuriken, discard a water energy, and ping 30 onto your ogre pawn.
Yeah. I'm seeing where this is going.
I'll swig with power splash for the knockout to take 2 prize cards.
Push Pidgeot, draw. Evolve into Yanmega, the Ditto. Jet the Yanmega to active to trigger the whatever the ability is called, the buzzing boost. What is it called?
Buzzing boost. That's a lot of energy.
To attach them here.
Now he needs another Chikorita and the Meganium Prime. That's what he needs. And then I just lose.
It's kind of crazy that I like miss out by like 10 damage on KO on that. I'll quick search.
Miss out on 10 damage.
Yeah, it does 210.
I've got oh wait, I do have 220. I thought I had 230. Well, you should play Vitality game. Full.
Let me think. Yeah, I'll grab this card. Use Turffield Stadium to get Meganium. Bench Chikorita and use Quick Ripening Herb to evolve it into the Meganium.
Speaking of, he just has that.
I mean, I have Turffield. I had the Chikorita in hand and I have Turffield available, so.
Yeah, he has Chikorita in hand, like always.
Yeah. I'm gonna boss, but I don't know whomst.
Don't boss. That would be
I'll boss the Raiding Greninja.
Oh, okay.
And then I'll use Jet Cyclone.
Drawing cards is elite.
Yeah, and I have to move 3 energy from this Pokemon to one of my bench Pokemon. So I'll move them.
You like, or is it just to 1?
It's just to 1.
Okay.
It says 3 energy, so I can also move to Jet Energy if I want to. But I'm moving 3 grass to the Toadscruel.
I'll draw for my turn. I'll attach a Stealthy Hood to my Greninja and evolve into Greninja Break.
Sorry, but you don't have an active. I mean,
pushing Lapras.
Yeah, fair.
I'll use Starmie's ability Space Beacon to discard a card from my hand, put 2 basic energy from my discard pile into my hand, which will be a water energy and a water energy.
Yeah.
I know.
I actually overmoved. No, this is still legal play what I did, but I didn't realize it says move 3 energy, not 3 energy cards. So I could have moved 2 grass energy cards because I have doubled energy with Meganium on bench. So I could have moved 2.
How much health does Meganium Prime have?
It has 150 HP.
150? He's fat.
Yeah, he's fat AF. The fat boy. I mean, you can kill my Pidgeot.
No, I can't. Not yet.
Oh no, wait, so I thought it was 90 HP, never mind, my bad.
If only it was 90 HP, that would be nice. What is the retreat cost? 1 retreat. Oh, that's just wonderful, isn't it? Oh, shit. This is not going well.
Did I forget to take a prize? I think I did.
You have 7. You killed only single prizes so far. Killed 3 of my single prizes. Don't try to steal prizes.
Hold on. Yeah, but I didn't take a prize after grabbing Raiding Greninja.
You've killed Greninja, and Rodom, and Encino, and Bronzong. So yes, you're correct.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, my bad.
Okay. What can I do this turn? Play Super Rod. You shuffle Azel, the Minion, and Radiant Greninja back in my deck.
Mm-hmm.
I'll play Luxury Ball.
Yeah.
Greninja. I use Radiant Greninja to discard a Psychic Energy. Actually, no. Actually, I have to. Draw 2 cards. Okay. I'll check return to Lapras.
Mm-hmm.
And then... So I do 80 damage, correct? Yeah, I do. I'll use Baby Greninja's Water Shuriken.
Yeah.
Deal 30 damage to your Meganium Prime.
Mm-hmm.
I'll play Inteleon from hand. To, I don't know. I'll get, Boss's Orders. And... Do you have any tools attached? No, you don't.
Bro's about to grab fucking startling megaphone.
I'm running out of I'll get Trader's Veil, but that's just putting off the inevitable. I'll play Boss's Orders to blow up your Pidgeot.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, I meant to put 30 on the Pidgeot and 60 on the Meganium. My fault.
I mean, you've only used one of the 2 Greninjas so far, so...
Well, I'm wasting damage. Can I take that back, see?
Yeah, that's fine.
There's the other water energy to discard. And I will use Power Splash to knock out your Pidgeot.
Mm-hmm.
Draw a prize card. Which I feel like these are much too little too late.
Push Meganium and draw. Fluffy Berry. Man, I don't have Quick Search anymore. That sucks.
Well, why do you think I killed the Pidgeot? I didn't want my Greninja getting gusted to shit.
That's very valid. Use Turfield. Grab
I guess.
this.
Vesper Queen. What the hell? I think you. Do you see the deck vision here?
I do see the deck vision. Yeah.
Evo Jammer and then Greninja to just be an asshole and kill all their children.
Children killing children. That's crazy. Okay. Let me do some math. Some ToadSchool math. Yeah. Also, I put Ogerpon in my discard pile, but yeah.
Pay tax, little boy.
Yeah, I'm not gonna play it, but I just realized I'm not gonna play it now.
What does 4 energy do? Wait, no. You don't have enough to kill my Lapras, do you? That's funny.
Play Guzman Hala, guarding Hisui and Heavy Ball.
Okay,
and
that could have been bad.
Yanma. Grab double colorless, Skyfield, and Floatstone. We're just spinning here, boys.
If you had a switch, that would have been really bad because then you could have put your manga up and then moved all the energy away.
Sure would have been nice, huh?
Yeah, it would be nice, but that's too bad for you.
Hold on. I don't think it's too bad for me yet.
I think it's about to be too bad for you.
I think I got enough with I bench Weirdeer and retreat into Weirdeer. And then use Leaf Trance to move. I think if I move all 6...
Why you need to use Leaf Trance? You can just push it with Frontier Road.
Well, I can't push it with Frontier Road. I have to retreat into it, but
that's the same thing. It's once during your turn when this moves Pokemon moves from the bench to the active, you can move any amount of energy.
Attach to Toadscruel manually. And I think this does exactly 240, which is enough to KO Lapras.
What? 6 times 4? That would be 240, and that's correct.
Nice. Boggers! Sorry.
Alright, I'll draw for turn. Okay.
Please promote something, bro.
I'm thinking of what to promote.
Well, you have to promote before drawing.
Seeing how pushing Telly on. But you're complaining. You concealed cards. Discard a card. Draw 2. Oh wait, hold on. Hold on, we can do stuff.
We can do stuff? That sounds terrifying.
Well, I drew the gust, so I actually can do things. Oh, I really want to play 2 supporters this turn.
I really want to play 2 supporters. It's crazy.
Is that really crazy, though?
I would have loved to play 2 supporters every turn, but okay.
Because I'm sure you have like 15 trillion options to switch in your hand. But I'd rather you didn't have.
Well, you know of 1.
I know of 1, but I'm sure you have more. And I don't think anything here has a high enough retreat cost that I can just get rid of it. So I don't really think I can do that many things this turn, but I can do something. Oh, Trainer's Mail. That's the card I want. I want that.
Her deck is so thin. Holy shit, bro.
That's a card. I'll get Buddy Boffin. Hold on, that's actually that's it right there. Wait, did I put it back in the deck? No, I didn't. I'll play the Buddy Boffin. And I'll put Manaphy into play. I think I'm swinging with Manaphy this turn.
That's crazy. There's no way. You're not even using like the Greninja break things?
Well, I'm gonna do that, but I have to hope that you just don't have Gus. I think we're playing for a no Gus turn, so we're gonna attach. We're gonna play switch to push Manaphy. Actually, no, I don't want to do that. I have Gus in hand. Pardon. I'm gonna play Guzma to push Manaphy.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to pull up Meganium Prime.
Pull up.
Okay, I'll pull up. But you have 150 HP? Shit.
Yep.
Oh no! I'm mad. I can't count.
You should have pushed up your Grenader break and swung with that, I guess.
Why would I do that?
I mean, it has an attack, right?
Yes, but it's... Why would I swing with my stage 4 and stage 3?
I mean, because you're picking up the KO that way, and this way you're not.
You're gonna kill it. I need him. I should have been playing Aqua Patch. Okay, well, use Space Beacon, discard a card, 2 water energy from my discard pile into my hand, and then I'll use my Water Shuriken, and my other Water Shuriken to ping 90 to your Meganium.
I'll push this Meganium.
I wasted a Gus for that. Because I thought Manaphy did 10 more damage.
Yep.
And that's not what I meant to do. I'll use Rain. I think this is the first time anyone's ever announced Rain Splash for 20 damage.
Yep. Maybe not the first time, but definitely not often.
What decks that played Manaphy in Standard ever played Water Energy? None of them.
Well, Poké-V-Star did.
Poké-V-Star has so many better options to attack than Manaphy. They would never be playing that.
Yeah. Surely there were some decks that ran like Luminous Energy with Manaphy in it.
Sure, but most of those decks had better options.
Touch Air Balloon. Pay commander attacks with my DCE. To bottom of deck. Put my Ogre Pawn in play. Use Steel Dance to draw one. Okay. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Holy fuck.
I got nowhere.
Let me
Prize card.
let me sequence this correctly. I'll retreat into Yanmega, triggering the buzzing boost to attach 2 energy to the Yanmega.
I'm surprised that I picked prize cards and you haven't just completely run over me yet. It's pretty embarrassing for you.
Use Turffield Stadium to grab Grovyle.
Winning is winning.
Bump Turffield for Skyfield. Play Eldegoss V and trigger Happy Match to grab Guzma from my discard pile. Ambrose Coops. Okay, there we go. Nice.
Let's run that back. I want to run back.
Why did you leave though? You can click reset. Oh, you didn't leave. Okay, you just click. You need to click reset. Never mind. Didn't say anything. As soon as he saw the Eldegoss fee, he was like, nah.
I spent so long putting that ninja into play. None of that.
Alright. Heads or tails?
Tails again.
Cool, I'll go first.
God damn it! I want to go first. I never shuffle my deck. That's a lot of energy.
Yeah, please shuffle your deck.
And I'll take them all again.
Oof. This time I won't forget to put my prices down.
I'll remember to hide my hand this time. Man, Palkia is way more fun than this. Oh, wait, hold on. Do I just get there? I think I just get there. Since you're going first, right?
I am going first.
Alright, I just get there. W.
Alright, draw for turn. Bench, Genesect, attach Grass, and pass my turn to you.
Alright.
I could have Teal Danced, but this feels better. I don't know if this feels better, actually. I should have maybe Teal Danced.
Time to then win. Discard a basic water energy.
Yeah, I should have Teal Danced, man.
Okay. Did we prize? No. Okay, I'm there. Bronzor.
Oh no.
Bench Bronzor. I'll play Timer Ball.
Two tails? Ah, god fucking damn it! Oh no, I'm gonna get fucking jammered.
Still need to find a switch, but you know. Okay, dude, come on! Oh wait, no, he's right there. Table. Table.
Not even Bronzong, that's crazy.
Oh, I meant to get. I completely forgot that I needed to get him. Hold on. Let me just stick Drizzle back into the deck and go get Bronzong.
I was about to say.
He's a little bit more important.
You can say that.
Alright. I need to switch.
Why'd you not fan road him before this?
I forgot he existed, I'm gonna be honest. Can I just fan road him real quick?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh god, I am just all over the place in this game.
I also didn't play optimally turn 1, but that's okay. Probably should have Teal Danced instead of attach manually.
Okay, what do I want this turn? You haven't even got. Even if I just need a switch. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Table. Ditto Prism Star. Table. And then table.
Yeah.
Alright. I'm gonna get there. Acro Bite. You top 2. Hello?
Anything happening on your side? Oh, there you go.
There we go. Shit! I whiffed. Oh. Go to the discard, you shitter.
What is even that Froakies attack again? That's bubble, yeah.
That's unfortunate. I guess I'll just attach and not have to do.
You can't attack, there's no stadium.
Fuck.
You still want to attach there if there's no stadium?
No, I did
Fair.
not do that.
Yeah, take that back, bro. Bro, imagine if it was just do 70 damage without any downside. That'd be crazy.
Oh, I was so close. Switch. I'll attack turn. Zong.
Mm-hmm.
And then my turn.
Draw for turn.
Alright, well, she's just gonna have candy, game, GG. Oh, fuck.
You know what? The Grand Tree was a top deck. Oh, this is too funny. Sorry. You want to do game tree? Or no? I don't like it. Did you leave the call? You left the call. Oh my god. Oh, I'm so sorry, Sam. No. The Grand Tree was a top deck. The Grand Tree was a top deck. I swear to God, yes, it was a top deck. To be fair, I would have drawn into the game into the Grand Tree if I teal danced, but I wouldn't have been able to use a turn 1, of course. Twice in a row, yes. Twice in a row. This deck is just goated. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. It's just goated. Oh my lord, that was so funny. Hold on, I want to judge deck check. Here you go. There's only one Grand Tree in here. It's 99 cards. I'm gonna see if Strategic is up for a match. Let's see. Judges got 94 ace specs. It was more. There were 82 cards in my deck when I drew that, by the way. I think. No, less than 82, because it was because it was 7 for opener, then 10 prizes. That's already 17. Then top deck, that was 18 already. So it was the 19th card of the deck. So there were 81. No, so there were 82 when I was going to 81. Yeah, no, that still tracks. I don't like it here. I mean, Strategic did say he was going for dinner, but that was 50 minutes ago. So maybe he's available. Maybe. He just has raw Grand Tree. The turn is necessary 2 turns in a row. I'll play another hold on. Okay. Bro had to compose himself for a bit. Have you cooled down, Sam?
This game is ass. First of all.
Like the one time that I am lucky, he just rage quits. It's so funny.
That's not lucky. That's pay to win.
That's not pay to win. It's lucky. It's lucky. You gotta admit, it's really funny though.
I'm not having fun.
You're not?
That was not fun. That was not fun at all.
Oh. Well. Okay.
Alright.
Oh, he's bringing out the Pagos. Okay. You want Tails again?
I would love Tails.
Cool, I'll go first.
Oh, wins the coin flip all 3 games as well. He's cheating.
Alright, good luck, have fun. Commander Zone. Seal Dance.
And this deck feels better already. I'm gonna be so honest.
Fair.
Alright, watch me just rip raw cards and just knock out your Chikorita this turn.
That'd be really funny. I'll pass.
Alright, top deck melody, watch. Aww.
Top deck switch, Aqua Patch, and another switch. Oh my god, he got Battle VIP Pass in opener. And you're saying I'm cheating. I feel like you always have this card in your opener.
Origin form, how give E onto my bench.
Let me guess, Radiant Greninja?
And Van Rotom.
Oh, okay, yeah, of course.
I'll go Van Rotom. Go get some cards. It's much more fair what I'm doing.
No, I disagree.
I should just play this until you beat it. I'm gonna be so honest. It would be so funny. Alright. Battle Compressor.
Mm-hmm.
Water Energy. Water Energy. Water Energy. That's on those to discard, but same difference. Alright. Yeah. Draw a card. That's a card. Patch return, Suicune. Do I get greedy? Do I agree?
I'm not gonna answer that.
It would be really funny if I hit. It would be really not funny if I don't. I win. I'm gonna put Commander into play, and then I'm gonna pay.
Alright, draw for turn.
I could have done and try to find water switch.
Oh, whoops.
Switch. Oh, nice prize card.
Yeah, thanks. Cool, what am I grabbing here? Grabbing this.
Yanma.
Bench Yamma.
Alright, watch. Evo Soda into Bailey.
Field Dance. Raw.
Wait, can you evolve after you Evo Soda?
Attach retreats into Yanma. No, you can't Evo Soda the turn that you put the Pokemon down.
Okay. Well, it's more asking if
Also, how the fuck did you know I had Evo Soda in hand?
I was just saying I read out a turn because I thought you'd have Evo Soda and then like fucking Meganium in your hand.
But you can't.
Can you Evo Soda after? Can you like Evo Soda and then evolve the same turn?
No, you can't.
Okay, good.
Because it says this counts as evolving your Pokemon.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought Evo said it was way better than that. Hold on, let me read the card.
It's just a worse evolution incense, but it's still alright.
I thought you'd be able to like tease me with that.
No. I'm just trying to think. How future-proof do I want to make myself? I think I'll do this. Use V-Star power.
Man, what the hell?
So get this. To put down this and this.
Oh, okay.
Kind of want to future-proof myself, if that makes sense.
What? Because you're kind of Radiant Greninja this turn?
And pass.
Well, you would be correct.
Yeah, exactly. That's why.
Draw a card. All right. Okie dokie. What do I kill this? I think that those two. So I'm gonna play Drizzile.
Mm-hmm. Use the Shady Dealings. For Skyfields.
Skyfield. And then I'm gonna use Dive Ball. Radiant Greninja.
Dude, this deck. Why is this deck so fucking good? I hate it here.
Steel card. Draw two. I just raw Luxury Ball. I'll play Luxury Ball.
Oh my god, both my fucking Chikaritas are gonna die. I hate it
Why
here.
would I kill both your Chikaritas? That doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna kill your Bailey and your freaking bird. Star.
I hate it here.
I haven't even played a supporter yet.
Me neither.
That's a good point.
Because my fucking Arven is prized, otherwise I would have grabbed Arven from the Forest Seal Stone to grab Boffin and something else.
Oh, you already used your Steel Stones, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I can draw a card.
Bro did all of this without finning.
I'll use the ball.
You run Eco Arm in this deck. I think that's the first time I've seen it.
No, I played it a couple times.
I don't remember.
I usually use it to recover Hourglass so I can keep doing Greninja shit.
At that point, you might as well just run Lana's Fishing Rod instead of that. If you're just recovering one tool.
I guess that's a good point. See, it's not even optimal.
Dude, if you're not calling this optimal, I don't know.
Okay, what did I do? I played a quick ball. Okay.
I think I'm the one that's gonna suffer this game.
Get the NA.
Oh my god. There's simply no way.
And then I'll use not Owl.
Oh! This turn is... I know, but I forgot you had him in hand, and like doing this on top of all of that is kind of crazy.
I haven't even played a supporter yet.
Exactly, but you're gonna grab one now, probably.
I'm deciding which supporter I want.
Yeah.
I need
Exactly.
a switch. And I need a... But I have my Pokemon. Never mind.
You attach Arven to Fanrotom. Nice.
I'll play Arven.
You only grab Arven from Noctowl?
Oh wait, yeah, I can get another card. Hold on. And this card's kind of broken. What the hell?
Yeah.
What do I need for next turn? I'm getting that off Arden.
Dude, imagine if Green's Exploration was in format.
For next turn, I want a supporter. Yeah. Okay. Shit. He's prized. Fuck. This prizing is quite awkward. It never hurts to get energy. I'll get fuck.
Alright, so these are 2 cards from Noxow. Man, this is like a solitaire turn. It feels like.
And off of Arden, I will get Hourglass. And I will attach Power Glass. I'll play Switch, move not to be active. I'll then play Capacious Bucket. Get some energy. I will then attach Return.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll play down to NAGS and discard my hand. And draw 6. Man, this turn is a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'll play Trader's Bale.
Oh my god.
I'll put Good Rod into my hand. Play Good Rod. I get Tails. Oh hell yeah, that's nice.
I want to vomit.
Put an item card back on top of my deck. Right? Just item?
Yeah.
I'll put Trader's Bale on top of my deck.
Oh my god.
And then I'll use my V-Star power to attach 3 water energy from my discard pile to my Radiant Greninja. And then I will use Moonlight Shuriken to knock out your Bayleaf and your Pidgey. And I will use Power Glass to reattach energy.
Don't forget your prizes.
And I'll take my 2 prize cards. Thank you.
Wow, I think that is the single most useless top deck in the game at the moment. I top decked Skyfield.
Oh, nice.
Here you go.
Well, I think you have knockout this turn. If you have an energy.
I passed already.
Oh, okay. Pass.
I do have knockout if I have an energy, but
You don't have an energy.
no.
I use Aqua Patch.
Or if I had like Candy Meganium, then I also would have had a knockout. But
I guess that's good. I need to remove my markers. I'll then toggle my Moonlight Shuriken to draw 2.
mm-hmm.
I'll then use Professor's Letter. Get 2 water energy.
How much water energy is still in your deck, man? Holy shit.
Quite a few actually.
How much does your deck run? Like 20?
14.
Oh, 14. Okay, that's quite a lot.
Plus Flash Energy, plus 2 twin, plus 2 double, well, plus double colors and twin.
Okay.
I have attached for turn. I need a, what you call it? supporter. I can play a supporter this turn. I'll play boss on your Eldegoss V.
Yep.
And your supporter for next turn, so I'll play Trainer's Mail.
Dude, the difference in deck size is kind of jarring.
That's the card for next turn. I'll get Guzma. There's Guzma. And then I'll use my Light Shuriken to kill your Chikorita and your guy.
Yep.
And I'll reattach energy. I'll take 2 practice cards. Isn't this fun?
I guess there's technically a top deck that I can use.
You are correct. I can probably get rid of Eco Armor and put Lana's Fishing Rod in.
Teal Dance. That's not what's happening with Teal Dance.
Oh, it's a Pokemon and a tool card. Hold on, Lana's Fishing Rod's kind of broken.
Play Combi and use the honey to
Oh, he's getting cards back. Oh, he's knocking me out. Look at him. Look at him go.
bench the Chikorita. Artisan, use the Artisan to bench Pidgey. Play bug catching sets.
I guess, did you draw? How did he get retreat?
I top deck Birdkeeper.
Oh, that's fucking wonderful. That's great.
Bench Chikorita.
I need to discard thing. Play Artisan. Hold on.
Oh yeah, right.
The Dene, Knock Towel.
And you're done. It's not that hard of a decision. Anyway, I'll swing with Myriad Leaf Shower for the knockout.
Okie dokie.
I think I'm still gonna lose though.
I need to count.
Like there's no way I'm still winning this game, but who knows?
I'll knock you out with Suicune. 5, 5, 10, 10, use 20 plus 20. Yep, I do. I'll draw for turn. I need to bench another Pokemon. Actually, I'll Poké Artisan.
Yeah, it's. I think I misplayed by benching the second Chikorita.
Bench.
But I mean, you still would have been able to knock me out with Poké if I didn't do that. So I don't think it's a misplay.
Man, if you to draw 2. I'll put Area 0 Underdepths into play. Bench Water Pond and Badoo. Just for fun. That's not what it's going to attach. And I'm going to toggle, draw 1. Oh! Oh boy! I think I'm just going to want to kill you this turn though. Yeah. And, the Energy Recycler. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And your recycler to discard those in the deck. Shuffle. Want to save that down the turn. I'll just swing with.
Hello, Echo. Yep. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for claiming your daily and your spicy Dananagi. I'll promote Chikorita and draw. I mean, that is a cards, but not really a great one. Is there for the lurks since you're making food? Okay.
He's got
Appreciate
a baby
that.
squad on the bench.
Yeah, I do. Skyfield.
Wow.
Which means you do have to discard 2 bench Pokemon.
Wow. Terrified. And Rodom and Mine.
Alright.
Actually, no, wait. Badu, not mine. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good. Don't worry. Hmm.
I think this is like my Mona Lisa of the deck right here. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, maybe.
I cooked with this. I built this like the third day this format started, and I haven't been able to make anything close to it yet.
Bench Mitsino, Turo, my Eldegoss.
Oh, getting crazy over here.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a weird play, but I have to do it.
I mean, no, that's a good play.
I mean, I can't. I mean, I can still technically still play Eldegoss then, but not this turn. It's a slow play.
Oh, I thought you were just trying to remove liabilities.
I mean, yeah, that's a nice bonus. But I'm still I still don't have my bench protection online, of course. I'll use synthesis to attach this to Combi. Pass.
Well, my sniping turns are over. If Ben does.
Oh, whoops. That's a mistake. Give me a sec.
Synthesis is actually pretty solid. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's not terrible.
Does it have to attach to itself?
No, to one of my Pokemon, so I attached to the Combi.
Oh, you attach. Okay. What do I want to do this turn? I don't know. I'll use fleet-footed to draw a card.
Mm-hmm.
Good, I don't know.
Yeah, no fam.
Can I end this game any sooner?
Any sooner? Dude, we're 9-4.
Well, I'm trying to think of if I can reduce turns by taking multiple prize knockouts.
Fair.
I'll use VS Seeker, get boss's orders,
Mm-hmm. What are you gonna boss?
and I'll boss the bitch.
Okay.
I don't know. What do my Italics have? Turn to Water Pond. Now swing for a knockout.
Okay. Push Chikorita and draw. Play Eldegoss. Use its ability to get Birdkeeper. Use Birdkeeper to switch Combi to active and draw 3. Oh, hi there, Fan Rotom.
Could have used you a while ago.
Yeah. POW hand extension, your Terapagos to active.
Whoa. Rude.
And I'll use alerts to draw a card and then switch Combi with one of my bench Pokemon.
No hand disruption. Huh. Okay.
And that's my turn.
I'll draw for turn.
Well, I mean, I had to play Birdkeeper as my supporter for turn to get out to kind of get out of this.
And I'll play Guzma. Pull up Eldegoss V.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll take a knockout.
Yep.
For 2 prizes.
Push Combi.
Alright,
draw.
Turn plays Disruption. No, I lose. I'm gonna cast Disruption, watch.
Yeah, imagine if I had that sauce. Bench Hootoots.
Play Countercatcher?
I don't think I play Countercatcher in the deck. Let me just double check. No, I don't think I do.
Ah, okay.
Use this to get the Ogerpon back.
Ogerpon back in play.
Mm-hmm. Rockets admin.
Okay. Draw 1.
Draw 9. Use Steel Dance. Oh, that's actually kind of funny. Revitalizer. Get back Eldegoss V. And Bayleaf. Evolve into Bayleaf.
What is this? What does this get for you? Or are you just playing it out?
I'm just playing it out, my guy. Hold on. Attach return.
What other decks do I have?
Floatstone. I'm not gonna play another match after this one, I think. Rowlet. Bench Rowlet, bench Trico, Night Stretcher for Pidgey. Bench Pidgey.
Oh, he's going crazy.
I'm going crazy.
That is mine. Did you cut the Nishka? I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, he's here, don't worry.
Oh, okay.
It's just that Poltergeist has been prized in multiple of these matches. Yeah, I don't think I can do anything here. Anything meaningful. I'll just use alerts to draw cards and retreat into Rowlets. It doesn't matter.
I'll drop return. Like Gladion. What's the prize card?
What is the prize card?
Dick fit in your mouth. Okay.
Nice.
I'll play the card I draw for the Rocket Savage Floatstone to retreat into Suicune.
Nice.
I'll draw a card. Oh hell yeah. Hurt the vessel.
What are you discarding?
Candace.
Oh yeah, Candace.
I'll attach return to water pond. Oh dang, I can't torrential pump. Okay, I'll knock you out. That's game.
Yeah, GG. Yeah, my prizes were a little awkward. I don't think Poltergeist was prized, but it was still a little awkward nonetheless. Because the Minccino was also prized. That's what I have evolved for. Yeah, the Minccino was also prized, but the Minccino was my only basic that was prized.
Okay, that makes sense.
But as you can see, both Arven and Guzma and Turfield, it's a little awkward.
What I'm thinking is that I need to start actually putting effort into my deck so that Palkia is not just like infinitely better than everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about accurate, yeah.
Because I usually just make the decks like 5 minutes before the game starts and then they're always shit.
I mean, I do have an idea for like hyper aggressive lightning.
What's he cooking?
It's not really a new idea, but like having Tapu Koko Prism Star as your commander and just reusing Dance of the Ancients.
Really? No, that can't be right.
I mean, you can reuse Dance of the Ancients multiple times per game.
Yeah, but Mariah has to be so much better in every way.
Maybe.
No? Because you can put Maridon in and then just go get your Tapu Koko.
Yeah, but my plan was to make this after like Canary releases, you know.
After Canary, okay.
After we get the new lightning support. This was kind of like my idea for that.
I've been kind of slow cooking lightning every so often. And I've always, because Maridon's just so good for this archetype.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Anyway, if you want to see the full list, it's here. It's not that crazy changed from last time. As you can see, I cut one of the Bayleaf, so I now have a 3-2 tree line instead of a 3-3 tree line. I think it's fine.
Got a quick ripening herb for that anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I might consider cutting this Bayleaf for the 100 HP Bayleaf, specifically for Radio and Greninja stuff. But this Bayleaf is pretty cool. Searches an evolution Pokemon.
That's probably smart because just letting me get away with.
Because like, Coin Flip Para is nice, but it's like so much worse. The reason why it's so much worse for this deck specifically is this is my only bench protection. It's the Vespiquen. I mean, the Combi is good on its own, but like the Vespiquen is like my only form of bench protection. It only protects my grass Pokemon, not even my Pidgeot, for example.
I'm thinking, just like metagaming, that 100 HP stage 1s are just better in every way. Like 70 HP, get rid of Dragapult.
Yeah, but Dragapult's banned, so that I don't think the basic it matters for the basics. Yeah.
That's why we play low HP basics now.
Yeah, that's why I feel comfortable playing a fucking Ditto Prism Star, and
I think I'm
Combi.
thinking my metagaming for stage 1s is that if it's 100 HP, it's better.
Yeah, that maybe.
Unless it just has like an insanely useful utility thing like Frogadier or Corellia.
Or like Pidgeotto with Airmail.
Yeah.
I don't think there even is a 100 HP Pidgeotto. I think the highest is 90.
I think there is.
No, I think the highest HP Pidgeotto is 90, I'm pretty sure.
I think the one in standard is 100.
No, it's 90, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, see? 90, and the free Virtue one is 80. And all of them are like Airmail is 60 even, but all of these are 80 or lower, so there's no 100 HP Pidgeotto.
Oh. Well, Airmail is just better in every way.
Yeah.
I'd take the risk.
But like, for example, for Dartrix, I don't think there was any 100 HP one, no. Fortunately not. God, this card is so ugly. Sorry.
What's wrong with Dartrix?
No, it's just this card is so ugly. Not necessarily Dartrix.
That one's not very good.
No, but I'm pretty sure like the new Bayleaf is 100 HP. Oh, it's 110 even, yeah, and this one is 100. So,
110? That's fat.
Yeah. So that was probably better than the Body Slam Bayleaf.
That's optimal, because then you can't torrential pump it when it's in the active. That's optimal.
True. I'll change it right away, actually. Commander. Where is it? Here, Grass Box.
That just like Loki cucks torrential pump. That's the thing. It's like the same thing with Monkey Dory in standard.
And then we got the Body Slam Bayleaf, yeah. But like this being 150 for its time was crazy. So that's really nice.
Yeah, I was expecting it to be like 130, 120.
Yeah, no, this was really fat for its time.
He's fat.
To be fair, Rowlet was priced in like 2 or 3 games as well, so I didn't really get to try out Decidueye and use Hollow Hunt stuff. But I'm happy that I was able to like recycle the Eldegoss stuff, which was really funny. Like Revitalizer is such a goated card; it's not even funny.
Oh, like Grass has got really good support.
Yeah.
Once Mega Meganium comes out, I think it's gonna be really decent.
Oh yeah, this Mega Meganium.
You a big fat beat stick.
Yeah, it is a 3 pricer though, which is really unfortunate. But like even like the Genesect, bro, like even this Kricketot has saved me in some of my mock plays. This Cricketot's kind of goated.
So, I mean, Grass is pretty decent without the Vitality Forest and Forest of Giant Plants, even though those are like Glohi broken.
Yeah, you don't need it if you have fucking this Meganium. Of course, this Meganium is more clunky, but
turn 2 every single time.
Because if you can do like turn 2 Candy Meganium into making a Pidgeot, that's still kind of crazy.
I mean, you don't even need it. You can just rip Grand Tree off the top every time.
Yeah, you have an extra out to Grand Tree. Maybe, honestly, the card that could be in this deck is Stadium Nav. Just to have extra outs to Grand Tree early.
Yeah, Stadium Nav, Colress. I mean, Colress, you want Jet Energy in your early game.
Yeah. Stadium Nav and Chorus are both great ideas. Not sure what the cuts.
Pretty suspicious.
I mean, Birdkeeper has saved me this game.
Isn't Kieran just better though?
No, because Kieran doesn't draw cards.
Surfer?
No, because the hand size is usually pretty large. of this, because there's so many Pokemon, you probably have like Pokemon in hands that you can't ditch. The Surfer is worse.
I know what switching card you should play. Guzma. That's a good one.
Yeah, I think so too, man. I could probably cut one of the Iono and Rocket's admin, potentially.
I wonder if the Team Rocket deck could work in here. That'd be funny.
Countercatcher is probably a card that should be in this too.
Alright, I'm gonna head out. I got stuff to do.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Thank you for playing.
Thanks for playing. My deck was garbage. Other than Palkia. Palkia is pretty good.
I'm about to say. Alright, I think Time Space Distortion probably can go. It's a little suspect. I'm not sure. I do like both of these though. Honestly, like Minccino, Cinccino is kind of a fraud, so I think I'll just yeet those away. And then I still need to yeet away one more card. I can yeet like a Pidgeotto. That's probably fine. Yeah, Sword and Shield Cinccino is a massive fraud. Yeah, I agree. It's like somewhat. It's like Radiant Greninja just is so much better. And like, yes, that is not in this deck, but like, come on. And there's still one card too many. I could probably cut like a Grass Energy maybe. Or like one of Air Balloon, Floatstone, Fluffy Berry. Probably Air Balloon. That's probably fine. Or Evo. Honestly, I'm running Timer Ball and Evolution Incense, so I think Evo Soda can go. I think Evo Soda is probably the all your decks 2 retreats. I think there was a 3 retreater in my deck, wasn't there? Yeah, the Vespiquen is 3 retreats. But like, if that's the only one. But the rest is indeed 2 retreats. Yeah. It can surprise me that this fat ass is still 2 retreats. But I think 3 retreats on the B. Yes, I know. This card kind of sucks, but it's like the worst, the best of all evil. Prevents all damage, bench. Search complete card text. There's so many cards, hold on. Hide alternate prints. Oh, well, I guess Shaman exists. Shaman does exist. So, it doesn't protect Ogrepaw. I mean, Ogrepaws protect on the bench anyways. It doesn't protect stuff like... Well, I don't want other stadiums. I could consider Shaman, honestly, in this list. I forgot Shaman existed, if I'm gonna be honest. Rapska. we ain't putting in Rapska in this list. We ain't putting in Rapska. Yeah, that's fair. Maybe weirder. Or Decidueye. Probably not. Yeah, there's only to this Pokemon. That's a fucking attack. 3 retreats is a deal breaker. Rapska is better than B. Well, the thing is, Combi is like the fucking goat. So I could still go like Combi and then Shaman. And just not run the Vespiquen. I think that's probably better. I think that's probably just 100% better. What is this? Yeah, it's only this Pokemon. Oh, Mountain Ring. It's apparently another card that does the same as Sky Pillar. Well, it's almost the same as Sky Pillar. Shaman is a basic, that's probably the best idea. Yeah. Probably. Bench Shield's not good enough. What is this? Down to Shedinja, that's on an attack. Attack. That's on Jumpluff only. Down to Illumise only. I mean, Transparent Walls is funny, but... Pillar is effects as well. Yeah. Pillar is effects as well, but I think I'll just go Shaman on this. Shaman's probably fine. If I want to do Rel or Rapska, I need to free up another deck space again, so... there. I just need to reorganize the deck so it's still within sorting convention. Yeah, okay. I think that was gonna be it. That's gonna be it from me for today. Once again, like I said, it's gonna be a bit iffy if I'm actually gonna stream next week, yes or no. If I feel particularly inspired for Tuesday, I probably will, but there's a very low likelihood that I'll stream on Saturday. Groval's a fraud. You had Fat Evolution Search without it. Yeah. Groval's kind of a fraud. I probably could have made room for it, but I like keeping it in here for now. For now, I'm also gonna just say goodbye to gang. Thanks everyone so much for watching, and I'll keep in touch with you guys. Let me just see if I can find someone to rate. In preparation, feel free to copy the raid message if you're watching on Twitch. GG's over Christmas week. I'll make a deck to rival Palkia. Oh boy. Let me see. Who is live that we can raid for funsies? Oh, Cat is still alive. That's probably our best bet. Look, you one-hit wonder from your deck building. You're literally mega odd, no. That's so funny. Okay. Alright. Thanks everyone so much for watching. Please come along with the raids. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.